A judge in Maryland has just ordered the release by 5 p.m. today of Kilmar Abrego Garcia in his habeas corpus case. And I'm going to go through this again tomorrow morning on the Aloha Friday Morning Report, but I want to give you a little bit of information on this right now. A lot of this breaks down, over this time, I've said a lot of times that the phrase illegal immigrant really bothers me because it's imprecise and it leads to a lot of confusion. And the reason I say that is that the phrase is imprecise and it leads to a lot of confusion. And it's the illegal part, not the latter. The word illegal is confusing because it makes people think that a crime has been committed or that some sort of punishment is involved here. And the fact is that there is no crime committed here and no punishment involved. And that is what this case is all about. The rules that we have in place about who is allowed to cross the border and when are really about policy. They're about two things mostly. One, vetting the people who cross the border, making sure that everybody who crosses the border is who they say they are. And two, making sure we like the mix of people crossing the border, especially permanently, for whatever reason. And that's changed a lot over the years. I'm not really going to get into that, but making sure we like the mix for a variety of reasons. And so when you cross the border, especially permanently or semi-permanently, without going through those processes, that's what you've violated. And that's why it's a civil and not a criminal violation, because you violated the policies, not the crimes, not the criminal statutes. And that's incredibly important because when we punish people in the United States, there are a lot of protections in place to make sure that we don't punish them cruelly or unusually. All kinds of things in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th Amendment. Mostly 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th. Anyway, that protect them. And a lot of those don't apply in this case because this is not about punishment. This is just about policy. Okay, so why is that so important here? When someone is held for immigration reasons, we're able to skirt a lot of the constitutional protections that are in place, not because the person's not allowed to be here, but because the person's not being punished and because they're only being held temporarily for a very specific purpose. And that purpose is to make sure that we have a chance to vet them, to send them through the immigration process without them leaving and disappearing on us, which is particularly a big deal back before we had, computers and stuff. And if we are going to be sending them back home, to make sure we can do that quickly. But if we are not going to do that, then we don't have the ability to hold them anymore. The only reason you can hold someone on for immigration reasons and hold them without all of those protections is because you're holding them for a very short time to do those quick immigration things. And that is why we are able to skirt those constitutional protections. But be very clear, this is not, never, under any circumstances, a punishment, which is why I have trouble with the word illegal. It makes people think that this is some sort of a punishment, some sort of a crime. No. This is just a function of the fact that we are in the process of returning them, sending them home, sending them somewhere. And that process is ongoing, and this is just a step in the process. Not because we are mad at them or we are punishing them for wrongdoing. And the case law is super explicitly clear about this over and over and over again. And that is what the court said today. Because Mr. Abrego Garcia was held specifically because he was about to be sent somewhere. He was about to be deported, removed, whatever the exact wording is. The problem is, the court has looked in and said, okay, so where is his final order of removal? Because that is a required step before you remove somebody. And it turns out there isn't one. It took them a while to figure that out, but there isn't a final order of removal, which means he can't be removed, which means he can't be held. The only reason he can be held for immigration purposes without all of those constitutional protections that a person who's being punished gets, remember, he's not being punished, is if he's about to be removed, like immediately, like in a very, very short period of time. You can't hold somebody for a really long time without those constitutional protections. That's absolutely contrary to the way that our system works. And here, the court has finally determined, after a bunch of stalling techniques by the US government, that there is no final order of removal. One doesn't exist. It's not there. And so she said, okay, well, then you're not allowed to hold him. That's it. I've looked through, she goes through a bunch of different ways of reviewing this, and no matter how you slice it, if there's no final order of removal, if you're not in the process of removing him, you can't hold him indefinitely or in an immigration context, in a civil context, in a non-criminal context, because none of those constitutional protections apply here. And so, they're sending him home. And by 5 o'clock today, he's out. His habeas petition has been approved. So, that is where we are right now. I'm sure this will be appealed, but we'll find that out soon. And I will get to you with more of this by tomorrow morning in the Aloha Friday Morning Report.